All right, I'm going to let my first words on the show be this. It's the right decision. It's a good decision. It's a tough decision. But again, the correct decision. What I'm referencing, K-State's decision to move the September 4th season opener against Stanford to AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. That's right, K-State is going to Jerry World. The home game against Stanford will be played at Jerry World. I am all for it. I understand that it became more complicated because of the pandemic and the impact that moving a home game has on the Manhattan economy. But I can explain to you all the reasons why today, and I'm sure it will take up most of the show today, this discussion. I can explain to you all the reasons why this makes a lot of sense. And generally, I think there's a slight majority that are more disappointed by this. K-State, yes, did go to Stanford, and they are now moving a home game to AT&T Stadium in Arlington. But I view this as something where you have to gauge. It's like a scale, and you have reasons on one side to move the game, reasons to keep it in Manhattan on the other side. And to me, the scale is tilted and tipped in favor of make this decision to move the game. So let me address first the obvious reasons to do this and then the complication. The obvious reasons to do this are it's a high-profile game. This is what big-time college football programs do. They play these big games in big arenas, big stadiums to start the year in neutral non-conference matchups. Some of the teams that have played in this specific game with its different sponsors over the year in Arlington at Jerry World, LSU, Oregon, Alabama, Michigan, TCU, Florida State, Oklahoma State, Auburn, Miami. LSU has played in this game 3 times since 2011. So big-name schools are doing this. You will be virtually guaranteed of like a primetime TV slot on September 4th, Labor Day weekend, the opening weekend of the college football season. Exposure. Big-time exposure. Far more eyeballs will see this game, wherever it is televised and whatever that slot is, than an 11 a.m. game in Manhattan against Stanford on FS1. That's just the reality of it. Okay? Then there's the financial incentive here. I have received the information just now, right before we came on the air. K-State will get paid $2.8 million in a guarantee to play this game. Their typical net from a home game is around $500,000. They expect to net $2.2 million from this game. So we're already at a $1.7 million net for K-State to move this game versus play it at home. So $1.7 million, basically, somewhere around there that you would be making off of moving this game to Arlington. There's financial reason. There's financial incentive. Finally, if we're just talking about sustaining the program here long term, this is something that is very appealing to recruits and players. Very appealing to recruits and players. If you are a recruit from the Dallas area, which K-State recruits plenty of, this is a really cool thing. If you look at this school and say, man, like these guys are going and playing in Jerry World, biggest football stadium, prestige-wise, I'm sure it's not pure volume-wise, but prestige-wise, right, in the world. They're going to go play that in my home state. K-State has 20 players from Texas on the roster, more than double any other state besides Kansas. This will help in recruiting. This will get players fired up that are on the current team to go play this game. Prestige, it's what big-time programs do. You're getting a big paycheck from it. It's going to help recruiting. And then let's address the complication here. Like, to me, all of that made it a slam dunk when we first started hearing about this, not officially, but about a year ago. I mean, it was like a year ago that this started to leak out that it was a real possibility. The pandemic made it more complicated because now you have to factor in what is the impact on the Manhattan business community here, losing a home game. We know that small businesses in general in Manhattan are hurting because of not having a football season last year. Well, not having a typical football season last year due to COVID. Not nearly as many people into the town, not people making a day or a weekend of it as they typically would. Fully understand that, and I am extremely sympathetic to that. And admittedly, that does make this much more complicated. But here's why, to me, the scale still tilts in favor of this being the right and sound decision. This is already a year in 2021 where K-State will have 7 home games. I mean, that's maxed out. 7 home games, you never really see more than 7 home games in a season. The split in the Big 12 changes to 5 home games as opposed to 4 this year, and then you still have 2 other non-conference games there. So if there were ever a year that you were going to take this, you'd want it in a year where you have 8 home games to take one of them away because there's already a surplus for this year. And yes, I understand it would be great to have this be the year where you have an extra home game because businesses need to recoup some money from COVID. But K-State also has a lot of money and a financial shortfall themselves from COVID this past year. And I just told you they're making 7 figures off of this, where the typical home game net is around $500,000. This is like adding 2+ extra home games worth of revenue on the schedule for K-State. And how long have we talked about how much money K-State will be potentially losing from this year with COVID? So it's a give and take. You still get 7 home games for the local businesses. K-State will make all of that extra money to recoup some of their losses and at the same time be doing something that can move the program forward. And if we're going to be forward thinking about this, let's think about the fact that K-State becoming a bigger time college football program and winning more games and becoming more successful by doing things like this, if it works and it pays off, will then create more business opportunities for everybody in the city of Manhattan and everybody that latches onto K-State football to make money long term. If a move like this in the short-term sacrifice does what I think it does, which is help elevate the profile of the program, there will be long-term benefits from that for everybody. If you only think in a small-time capacity and don't take advantage of this opportunity in this year, which was given to K-State by AT&T Stadium reaching out to them, you're going to be stuck being a smaller-time football program. You're not going to win as much. Excitement won't be there. People won't spend as much money. Da-da-da-da-da. How far do I need to walk this down the road here? So that, to me, is why the scale is tilted in favor of this being the right decision and a sound decision. And especially when you start to see some of the financial breakdown of this, it's a no-brainer. Very sympathetic to local businesses. I am very glad that they have 7 other home games this upcoming season to help them out, and I hope that attendance is full and rocking and everything there will be great. But I think this makes sense because of how many home games are already there and all the benefits that it will provide for K-State, not the least of which is financially recouping some things with the athletic department, which has been in a shortfall itself. And I'll throw on one more thing here. We don't know that stadiums will be at full capacity in September. That's not something that anybody wants to hear, and it's not something, frankly, that I want to hear or think about, that we could potentially be going through part or a full other college football season without it being like we're accustomed to it being. But listen, I mean, right now, the vaccine rollout has not exactly been lightning fast. We don't know how many people are going to take the damn thing across the country. So we may not be in a position. There are no guarantees. I mean, listen, we don't know this pandemic has taken a lot of twists and turns. There are no guarantees that we will be back to having full stadium environments by the time this game is going to be played on September 4th. And that gives you even more incentive to go make this move right now from a financial standpoint, because ticket money, you would not be able to take in as much ticket money potentially if that is the case as you normally would for a home game. You're getting a $2.8 million guarantee to go play this game right now. Take the money, no questions asked. And if we're talking about like fan environment and whatever extra ticket money would be there on top of that, which state, Texas or Kansas, do we think will be closer to the front of the line on just Katie bar the door, letting as many people as possible back into a stadium early, it'd be Texas. I mean, Texas, it's like Texas and Florida. Texas and Florida were the two that were really pushing for that early on. Jimbo Fisher, or not Jimbo Fisher, Dan Mullen had that game this year where he played at Texas A&M and was just whining and complaining because they had so many people there at their game because the state of Texas was cool with it. Like, you could see potentially more K-State fans actually at the game in Arlington by the time it actually happens than would be feasible to have here in Manhattan just based on what the attendance restrictions would be. I understand those are hypotheticals, but those are hypotheticals that you have to think about now because of the world that we live in a post-COVID society. So that's just one more thing to throw onto that scale. And I'm sorry, but to me, the scale tilts too far in the pro column. There are too many positives to this to outweigh what is decidedly a difficult negative to swallow. Understand that. But to me, it's the right move and one that K-State had to make.